So, Apple just released the iPhone 14 series and the Pro models are great phones, but this video is targeted at the 14 and 14 Plus, so here are the reasons why you should not buy those devices. Let's dive in. How's it going, guys? Max here. So yes, like I said, Apple just released the 14 series with the Pro models, the 14 Pro and Pro Max being the best device choices if you really want to get them. And for a starting price of $1,000, that's for the Pro models, I really think that might be okay if you want to get those devices. But that brings us to the non-Pro iPhones. That's the base models, the 14 and 14 Plus. And even though I know that yes, it's an iPhone, so whatever I say in this video, people will still buy it, or in places like my country, girls are already doing whatever they possibly can to get their hands on these devices, if you know what I mean. But let's just dive into the facts about these phones, which brings us to my first point, which is the lack of value or price. Okay, now I won't be comparing the 14 to just any random device out there, but I'll be comparing them with the previous iPhones in order to allow iOS users make the right choice. So just keep these two sets of devices in mind, the 14 and 14 Plus from this year and the 13 Pro and Pro Max from last year. I think you can see where I'm coming from right now. The base 14 series starts from around $800 to $900, and by the time the 14 series will be available to the general public, the 13 Pro and Pro Max can be gotten for around this same price point as already seen on eBay. And those Pro models from last year are way better phones than the base series of this year, and with something that will bring us to our number 3, which is the display. Now, both sets of devices have the same display sizes, which are 6.1 inches for the 13 Pro and base 14 and 6.7 inches for the 14 Plus and 13 Pro Max. Now, except from the display size, every other thing about these displays, the 13 Pros from last year just crushes the base models from this year, with the most significant features being the peak brightness levels and the higher refresh rates. The Pro models from last year both have 120Hz displays, they are brighter, and you will just get a way better display experience than on the base models of this year, which both have 60Hz displays, sadly. And this moves over to our number 2, which are the specs. Now, the two sets of devices both have the same chipset, despite the fact that one is a year older, but the 13 Pros are simply faster because the A15 Bionic chip was well optimized for the 13 Pros than any other device out there, which is why despite the fact that the 13 and 13 Pros both had the same chipsets, the 13 Pros kept on beating it at a speed test almost every single time. And please don't get me started on the camera set, because the 13 Pros have a complete camera setup which comprises of a main camera, an ultra wide, and a 3x telephoto, which I think is the base requirement for a flagship phone in 2022, as opposed to the main camera and ultra wide found on the 14 and 14 Plus of this year. And I know that there is a new photonic engine that still requires software to work very well, but this wouldn't make the cameras of the base 14s better than the Pros of last year. You still get a better camera performance and experience overall with the Pros, and that's just facts. And that brings us to our final point, which is that it's basically the same phone as the iPhone 13. Like, no jokes. You know how people previously trolled Apple for releasing the same phone but with a different chipset? Now it's the same phone, the same chipset, and with a new, in quote, selfie camera. And that's basically all. And yes, I know that there is a new photonic engine like I've just said, but most of that relies on software, which the 13 does really well. And I'll give the credits to the 14 Plus for being a bigger phone and having a larger battery, but the base 14, for example, there is absolutely no design difference from the 13. And I know some will say that Apple doesn't really change their designs regularly, but they actually do slightly, unlike this year where the base model of the iPhone 14 might be leftovers of the iPhone 13 from last year and nobody would really know. Like, seriously, can't tell the difference at all. So in conclusion, I think that the Pro models of this year are great phones, really great phones with a lot of features, both with the software and the hardware improvements, but there's just so much taken away from the base models that I think that if you're not going for the 14 Pro and Pro Max, you would have a way better experience and user satisfaction with the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max. Anyways, tell me what you think about everything I've said down in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.